Hey everybody, Sam White here, founder at Shakespeare in Detroit. I hope you all are healthy and happy. I'm just adding a little bit of crystal light to my water here. I wanted to stop by and just talk a little bit about Shakespeare with you all. For anyone who follows Shakespeare in Detroit's YouTube channel, you may already know, but if you are new to Shakespeare in Detroit's YouTube channel, you don't know, my name is Sam White, and I am the founder of a nonprofit organization, this nonprofit organization called Shakespeare in Detroit, which produces professional productions of Shakespeare's plays. We've been around for 10 years. We have 3 programs, actually. We have our main stage professional shows, and then we have our STEAM program, which is our educational youth program, which takes place in schools and then extends through the summer. And then last but not least, we have special events like Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, which is just around the corner. And if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, we'll leave a link in the description here for you to purchase your tickets. Tickets include a complimentary individual bottle of champagne or Prosecco, and then you get a holiday cookie. The first 20 people to walk through the doors will receive a holiday gift, and then everyone receives a raffle ticket so that you could possibly win a gift during the intermission. So if you haven't gotten your ticket to our special event, our annual reading of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, make sure you do that. And we'd love to have you on December 16th at 7:30 here at Mary Grove in the Liberal Arts Building, which is across campus from where our office and costume shop are. So hope to see you soon. But I wanted to stop by our YouTube channel and talk about Shakespeare. You know, I talk about him all the time, probably every day of my life, or I think about him and his work every day of my life, because he has been the center of my universe for more than a decade. Even though our relationship has been much longer than that, because my mom, when I was 8 years old, introduced me to Shakespeare. If you don't know the story of how I was introduced to Shakespeare when I was 8 years old, my mother caught me listening to rap music. I believe it was Salt and Pepper, and she knocked on my door, and what I know for a fact is she had a smelly book in her hands, and it smelled like an old attic. If you remember what an attic smells like, because we have books in our attic. We have 2 attics upstairs. We had one, like a big one, and then a smaller one. But anyway, she knocked on my door and gave me a book, and it smelled old. And it was the complete works of William Shakespeare. My mom had me read it from cover to cover. So there were 37 plays in there. It took a number of years to finish it. When she gave it to me, I was 8, right? So I was always a really good reader, even as a kid, because I actually started reading even before kindergarten. But reading Shakespeare is a different animal, as you might imagine. And so I didn't get it right away, but after years of reading Shakespeare, eventually I fell in love with it. And then fast forward to 2012, when I started planning for Shakespeare in Detroit, and Shakespeare in Detroit was at that time what I called Shakespeare Against Cancer, where myself and some of my acting colleagues, because I was an actor, a stand-up comedian, a performer before I became a director and a producer, but we would go to children's hospitals and perform vignettes of Shakespeare's plays for kids, for children who were receiving fusion treatments, which are chemotherapy treatments. And chemo is, anybody who's been through chemo or had a family member or a loved one who's gone through chemo knows that chemo is boring. It can be specifically boring for kids. And so Shakespeare Against Cancer, the predecessor to Shakespeare in Detroit, would serve as a respite for those kids. And we would perform vignettes of some of the plays. So my life started to revolve around Shakespeare in 2012. And then in 2013, of course, Shakespeare in Detroit was born 3.5 weeks after the city filed for bankruptcy. And we've been going strong ever since then. But when I think about Shakespeare, not just on the level of like production or giving the plays away as, live performances, when I really think about the work on a personal level, from the moment my mom introduced me to Shakespeare. And by the way, I actually saw my first musical too at 8 years old. My mom took me to see Chorus Line. So theater has always been with me. And now that my mother is no longer with us, I really, and actually this time last year is when we lost her. I've really been thinking about how grateful I am for the opportunity to share a gift that my mom gave to me and give it to other people. Yeah, sorry for the pauses in my speech. I'm just trying to be thoughtful and also, you know, not start boo-hooing. So, yeah, I'm feeling really grateful. A bit melancholy as well, to be honest, but I'm feeling very grateful for my mother and for my introduction to Shakespeare at such a young age. You know, I say this all the time when I'm talking to educators and some of our sponsors and funders about how 8 is a fundamental age. And there's studies actually in regards to sort of those primary ages, you know, where kids absorb a lot of information and the most sort of important years of their lives. And it's usually like 3 years old or up to 3 years old. And then primary school, just how impactful that time in their lives is and how, you know, they carry that forward. And I am the perfect case study of that because I was introduced to Shakespeare at such a young age in elementary school in 3rd grade at 8 years old. And you fast forward to all these years later and he's totally changed my life. I'm from 7 Mile. That is 1 mile from Eminem's 8 Mile. For those of you who are not from Michigan or not from Detroit and are wondering, what's 7 Mile? That's just the road that I was raised on. 7 Mile in Greenfield. Greenfield is the cross street. So that's the northwest side. Some people say west side, but it's technically, geographically, the northwest side of Detroit. Born and raised there, and it's not like I knew any other kids or peers my age who were as crazy about theater as I was. And I definitely didn't have anybody in school or friends that, you know, loved classical plays. I'm pretty sure that I was the only one that I knew of, you know. And so we couldn't listen to rap music, but we could certainly read, you know, as much as we wanted. We couldn't read whatever we wanted, but we could certainly read C.S. Lewis, William Shakespeare, Tolkien, the Bible. We could read those books, and we certainly did. I certainly did. I grew up with my younger brother, by the way. So when I say we, I'm talking about he and I, primarily. But even he, you know, wasn't and isn't as into theater or plays or Shakespeare as much as I am. My mother was really thoughtful and specific and consistent. Oh my, you know, like I think about how inconsistent people are, you know, like especially these days, and I have such compassion and I try to give such grace to people because everybody in our world has really been through it, specifically the last 3 to 4 years since the pandemic. And, you know, there's wars breaking out every day, it feels like, and there's just a lot of utter chaos in the world. But I just think about even amongst the chaos, because my mother was ill, not from COVID, but ill from dire disease and illness during the pandemic. And she continued to be kind and consistent and graceful and show up for people even with a terminal illness. And so, and I have to tell you, as nice and wonderful as people realized and would acknowledge she was, you know, like her friends and the people from her congregation, as wonderful as they knew she was, they had no idea just how incredible she was behind closed doors. She was even better in private. And the person that she presented to the world was, in fact, the person that she said she was and the person that, other people saw. And I mention that because I think that example has been the reason, the inspiration for how and why I have been consistent with Shakespeare in Detroit. I had someone who I was talking to and confiding in tell me that I am well contained, and that's a really, I think that's a great example of sort of how my mother, both of my parents, were beautiful examples of grace, commitment, and consistency. Because truth be told, I don't always feel like reading scripts or going to rehearsal or doing a lot of things, especially since I lost my mama, who was my muse. I would call her every day after rehearsal to discuss the play that I was working on or some of the trials, tribulations, challenges, inspirations, all the things that would happen in rehearsals. And I no longer have that outlet or that resource. I haven't had it for almost a year now. For a year now. It's actually a year now. But what I do still have is her example. And so even when I don't feel like doing those things, I do them. Because commitment is not something that you do just when you feel like it. You do it all the time. That's what makes a consistent person. So even in the space of a pandemic, even in the space of personal trials and tribulations, I learned, not because she told me to, but from her example, from my mama, that you always show up. You show up for the things that you care about, and you show up for the people that you care about. Hard stop. And everybody has different capacities and different abilities and different sort of thresholds, and everybody's different. And everybody didn't have an example like my mom or like my father. And I understand that. And again, I give people compassion and grace or space and, all of that to do and be whoever they need to be. But when you talk about Shakespeare, I can't talk about Shakespeare without talking about my mother. And Shakespeare has changed my life. As I said, I'm from 7 Mile. And in a couple of months, I will be in rehearsal for my 3rd season at the world-renowned Stratford Festival. And I'm pretty sure I mean, obviously, I don't have like a book of stats or anything, but I'm pretty sure that I'm the first Black American woman to direct there. And that kind of doesn't matter, but it's interesting to think about. Because I don't know if I would have ever thought that I would direct there, just based on, the fact that I don't think it's happened before. But more than that, it's such a beautiful proof point to say that, like, hard work, consistency, great parenting, exposure, art, it pays off and it matters. And so when I think about Shakespeare, he's done so much to me by way of and care of my mother, in that I have built with some incredible support, like our amazing managing director, Christine Palakia, like our former production manager and former costume designer, Cal Schwartz, like dozens of actors and other folks who have come and gone at Shakespeare in Detroit. We've all built this incredible movement in Detroit called Shakespeare in Detroit, where long before 2020, people of all ages, races, experiences, and backgrounds have been coming to perform or to watch plays from the Bard's Canon. It's remarkable what we've built, and it all started from my mother giving me a book at 8 years old. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And I mean, everything from this costume shop that I'm sitting in right now at Mary Grove. I'm grateful to our office next door. I'm grateful to all of our funders. Like, it's incredible to think that it all started with a knock on my bedroom door from my mama. And so when people ask me about Shakespeare, I remember, and I don't think I've ever told this story before, and I don't need to get too specific, but I'll say when Shakespeare in Detroit had got a really gorgeous feature in a magazine, and I was on the cover, there was a person this dude who I've still never met, who posted a picture of me on social media, and there were 90 comments underneath, with people being really negative and saying some really terrible things about me. They were very upset that I had started Shakespeare in Detroit. There was no sort of, I didn't know any of these people personally, but they were very upset about the cover of the magazine. And I think the headline for the magazine was how the Bard saved the city, and they didn't like that headline. By the way, I didn't write the headline. I was the subject of the headline, but I wasn't the headline writer. But they were very upset that I was on the cover of the magazine, that headline was there, that I was and the other, members of Shakespeare in Detroit were getting credit for creating a Shakespeare movement because there had been Shakespeare in the state before. And I remember my mom, I told her about it, and my mother said she was just a G. You know what I mean? She was just so cool. Oh, you should have just known her. If you knew her, lucky you, lucky us, blessed us. So she was just the coolest, and she was just like, so who are they? And just her steadiness, like she was just not moved, not, as people say, unbothered. And she said, you're doing something right when people say anything, and so the only person's opinion you should care about is your own and mine. So I did from that moment on. I sort of, the only opinions I really cared about was my opinions of my work and my mother's opinion or opinions of my work. Because it hasn't always been easy, and it hasn't always been, we haven't always been embraced. And I understand that some people may not be used to seeing someone like me, I guess, running a classical organization, but as my mom would say, so I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that too. I'm grateful for all of those things. I'm grateful for the people who support us first and foremost, because I really don't pay attention to negativity anymore, as I said, and we don't really get that much negativity, and if we do, I don't really see it. I'm sort of in my Shakespeare bubble these days, working on shows for Shakespeare in Detroit and other places. But I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for my mom. I'm grateful for Shakespeare. I'm grateful for the city of Detroit. I'm grateful for all of our funders. I'm grateful for our audience. We just celebrated 10 years on August 14th, 2023. It's been a decade since Shakespeare in Detroit officially, historically performed the first ever Shakespeare in the Park experience in Detroit proper. I'm grateful for that. I'm just grateful. And Shakespeare has truly changed my life. I don't know what my life would have been without Shakespeare. It would have definitely been, something in the performing arts, because I was just born to be an artist, or I might have been a doctor, because I do. I think I have a strong stomach and I like helping people, which is, I think, a really good mix of skills to have as a doctor. And I think my bedside manner would be on point because I genuinely care about people. I'm grateful that Shakespeare in Detroit has had the opportunity to give out $35,000 to Detroit youth. I'm just grateful. And as I look around our beautiful costume shop, because it really is cool, I'm so grateful that we're here. For a long time, we only worked remotely. We still work remotely because we try to save gas and be conscious of, the environment and not use so much fuel and save, money, and also have a great work-life balance for all of us. I don't know if I've mastered that yet, but I'm grateful to have this beautiful space. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be planning for the 2024 season. I'm grateful to be directing Romeo and Juliet at the Stratford Festival. As I said, my 3rd season at the festival. Shakespeare truly changed my life. So when people ask me about Shakespeare, maybe for a lot of people, it is just about the plays. It's not about the plays. It's not about the theater industry for me. It's not about, any of the sort of external manifestations of theater. It's about this gift, one of the many gifts that my mother gave to me, and that I'm grateful to be able to pay forward to the city that raised me, Detroit, because I'm a Detroiter through and through. Even when I go other places, I'm still representing the D. And so I'm grateful. So I just wanted to put this gratitude into the universe, and because I remember this time last year, we had to cancel A Christmas Carol last year because the ice on the ground was terrible and it was too dangerous for anyone to drive. We're back this year though, and I think we're going to beat the weather this year for our annual reading. But I wanted to post this because I had, in that video where I was talking about the cancellation of A Christmas Carol, I also shared with everybody that my mom had passed away. And at that time, it was about 2.5 or 3 weeks from the time that she passed. And I shared that because if you've seen my TED Talk, my first TED Talk, almost 10 years ago, I talk about my mother. I talk about my mother in almost every interview that I've ever done. So I wanted to share that news about my mother with our audience who's been on this journey with us, that she's no longer with me in physical form, but she's here, and she's here, and she's in everything that I do. So, yeah, it's an interesting life with Shakespeare that I've had, and I want to encourage anybody who is out there who may be still, like myself, processing a major life-altering, gut-wrenching, excruciating loss. I want to encourage you to not give up and to remain consistent. Cry when you need to. Crying is good. It actually helps with the processing, keep crying. Keep crying and keep trying. But never, ever give up. Okay, have a happy weekend. I hope to see you all at A Christmas Carol. I'm looking forward to 2024 after that. And we'll keep going. And I appreciate y'all. Thanks for tuning into this YouTube channel. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.